Welcome everybody to New Vision Church. What a beautiful day we got, huh? I mean, the sun's shining, the soft breeze is blowing, no clouds in the sky, and you can sense fall is here, isn't it? I mean, fall is upon us, and it's just going to get more and more beautiful. In fact, in our neighborhood, we've got some trees that are already starting to change, and so I'm looking forward to taking my beautiful wife and going for a nice little drive up north and seeing all of the fall colors. Today, I want to talk to you a little bit from the title, Big Sleeves. And we're going to be talking a little bit about envy, jealousy, and greed. And I want to start off, if we can, with Acts chapter 7 and verse 9. It's always good to start with a passage of scripture, and I'm reading from the NIV version, Acts chapter 7 and verse 9. Everybody there? We'll wait just a moment. I see some Bibles are still ruffling a little bit. And there we go. Okay. Beginning at verse 9. Because the patriarchs were jealous of Joseph, they sold him as a slave into Egypt. But God was with him. I love that last line. But God was with him. There was once a very godly man who lived in a cave. He lived in a cave in order to give himself to prayer, to worship, and to contemplation. Well, wanting to lure him away from his life of piety, Satan sent and dispatched some demons to try to lure him away through lust and selfishness and greed. But demon after demon reported back to Satan, saying he just won't budge. We can't get him to waver. He just won't give in. And so Satan said, well, boys, let me show you how it's done. So he made his way to the hermit's cave. He perched himself on his shoulder. He bent down and he whispered in his ear, your brother has just been made bishop. And the expression of serenity that was on the very spiritual man's face turned to a scowl. And immediately the demons knew that Satan had succeeded as the man's heart began to fill with envy. Envy can be a very dangerous thing. Let me define it for you. Envy is being discontented. Envy is being resentful, which is aroused by someone else's possessions, their talents or their qualities, or sometimes it's just dumb luck. But a person then becomes resentful of that person. They become discontented with that person. And oh, how this can turn people's lives upside down. It can cause them to become something that they aren't. It can cause them to do things that they would have never done. It turns best friends against one another. It literally tears families apart. It sometimes leads to the most egregious and horrible sins, simply because a person is so envious. In fact, that's what James was talking about. James chapter 4, he said, where is all this fighting coming from? Where is all of this discontent? Why are you so resentful? Doesn't it come from the lust that you have for things that others have? He's talking about envy, being envious. He's talking about this resentfulness and this discontent. All of this is coming because of jealousy. And I've seen it. And I'll bet you've seen it too. I want to give you a great example of this that's found in the Bible. And we're really dealing with Joseph and the coat of many colors. And I know that many of you have heard about this, and Sunday school teachers have taught this. And I want to spend a little time with this. It's in Genesis chapter 37 and verses 1 through 4. If you were to look at it, this is the passage we're going to be dealing a lot with. In the King James Version, it is described as a coat of many colors. In the NIV, it talks about an exquisite coat that was made. But if you were to look at it literally, it means a coat of many pieces. And if I was to go even farther, it's really a coat of big sleeves. Now you might ask yourself, well, what does that matter? What do you mean a coat with big sleeves? Well, most of the workers during that particular time, the time of Joseph, most workers would wear a vest, and they wouldn't wear big sleeves. And the reason they wouldn't wear big sleeves is because a vest the sleeves would just get tangled up and would be a bother to those that were actually trying to do the work that they were trying to do. However, people with big sleeves, those were the bosses. Those were the people that were supervisors. And what they would do, they didn't have briefcases back then. They didn't have laptops, right? Laptops, briefcases, and that sort of thing. So what they would do is they would take their writing utensils, their paperwork, and everything that they had that they needed, and what they would do is they would place those things in those big sleeves. And they had drawstrings on them, and they would pull those drawstrings to keep them secure. See what I'm saying? If you saw somebody, for instance, if you go to a work site, or if you go to a place and you see someone with a Rolex watch, or you see somebody with Oakley sunglasses, or you see somebody with a briefcase, your immediate instinct is that's the boss. That's the person who's in charge. That's the one right there, the one that's looking over the plans, and he's in a real nice Armani suit, or whatever the case might be. So a person who had big sleeves was immediately seen as the boss. So when you go back then to this story of Joseph and his brothers being envious, they weren't just envious because their father bought him this really nice, attractive suit, or this really nice and attractive coat, as pretty as it was, or as beautiful as it was. It went deeper than that. They were upset because the father, Jacob, put him in charge of the family business. Why did he do that? Well, when you go back to Genesis chapter 37, you see an incident that took place. And this is where that Joseph saw that his brothers were doing something that they shouldn't be doing. I can tell you by this that what they were doing could have absolutely injured, could have absolutely hurt the business, could have hurt their father and everything that they were doing. And so what did he do? He went and he told his father, listen, this is happening. We need to stop this from happening, because if we don't, it's going to cost us a lot of money. And the father recognized his loyalty. The father recognized the fact that Joseph loved him. And so because of that, he decided to give Joseph a coat with big sleeves. He put him in charge of the family business. Now, his brothers then saw that the father loved him more, but really just saw the fact that he was more faithful to his father, that he could be trusted by his father. And so he was then made the foreman or the supervisor, the boss. And they became extremely envious of him. They became extremely jealous of him. And it changed everything. This might explain, by the way, why that the father sent Joseph to go and to see what was happening with his brothers as they were tending the sheep. Why would he send this young person out there to do that? Because he was in charge. He was the foreman. He was the supervisor of the operation. It might also help you to understand when it was Joseph was working for Potiphar in Egypt, and his wife decided that she had had enough and she wanted to have sexual relations with him. The Bible declares that he twisted and turned and left his coat behind. Why was he wearing a coat? Because Potiphar had made him the foreman or the supervisor or the head of Potiphar's business. I'm saying all of that to say this was all about power. This was all about who's in charge. This is all about who is greatest here. And the sons of Jacob were extremely jealous and envious. So when they saw Joseph coming, they were embroiled in rage and anger and jealousy and greed and covetousness. And what happened? They took this young child, this young kid who was in charge, and they threw him into a dry cistern. And they contemplated. Reuben wanted to try to get him out. But they were talking amongst themselves what they should do. Maybe they should just kill him. Maybe they should then kill something and say that a wild beast got him, or whatever the case is. But that's what they decided that they would do. They wanted to destroy him. And they were willing to commit murder. That's what this envy had brought them to. That's what this covetousness had brought them to. That their sole desire, their sole intent was that I want to see you destroyed. Now you think about this in your life. How often has envy, how often has jealousy caused you or caused others to behave in ways that they never would have dreamed of behaving? How often has envy and jealousy caused you or caused others to do things, to say things that they never would have done? I know of a particular person that because that their child, their daughter had purchased a house, and they thought that the house was bigger and better and more beautiful than her house, which, by the way, she had a beautiful house in and of herself, but because of that was the end of it. And she did everything she could, accusing her falsely, believing false reports, severing off all family and all relationships. And what led to this? A house? No. Envy, and jealousy, and covetousness. I've seen it on the college campuses. My daughter right now is at a university, and there's some conflict that's taking place between some girls that are there, where the one particular girl doesn't want anything to do with the other girl. It just all of a sudden has just cut off relationships, is hateful to this girl. And I looked at this, they started out so friendly, so kind, everything seems so good. And you ask yourself, what has happened here? I can tell you what happened here. She got jealous. She became envious. She's a pretty girl, you see. The other girl, she's pretty in her own way, but She was jealous. And because of that jealousy, it caused her to do things she never would have done, say things that never would have been said, all because of envy and jealousy and greed. What I'm telling you in this, the first thing, is that the devil uses envy. He uses jealousy. He uses greed and covetousness. Why should they have this? Why should they have been promoted here? Why should they get that position and not me? I mean, look, I have this, I have this, I have this. Why should they have this and not me? We need to be careful, because envy will turn you into something you never dreamed you would be. Now, as I said, there is one final thing that I was so thankful of. But God was with him. And I want to tell you this. If you're a person, if you're struggling, where you're finding yourself just mad, saying things you shouldn't say, and the Holy Spirit is awakening you to the fact that maybe you're just a little envious, that you're fighting with jealousy, that you're coveting, God is with you. God can help you to overcome it, because it's a trick of the devil. It's a strategy that the devil is using to try to destroy you, and to destroy you, and to try to destroy me. He's with you. But I want to tell you something else. If you're on the receiving end, and it seems like that you're being falsely accused, that your world is being destroyed, that life as you know it is being turned upside down, and you just don't know, God is with you. And I guarantee you, just like with Joseph, who went from the prison to the palace, God is going to take your life, and God is going to turn it all around. And you're going to find yourself in an even greater position, because he's promised you an abundant life. He's promised that he will be with you, and he would be a very present help in your time of trouble. He said every tongue that rises up against you shall be condemned. Don't let envy destroy you. Rise up above it. Let us pray.